Courtney Litbeck joins us now from Washington, D.C. Courtney, thank you so much for joining us. I know Katy, Texas very well. Family members live in Katy. It's one of those ideal suburbs, right? This is where nothing bad is supposed to happen. You were targeted on social media, and help me understand this, because they were operating through fellow high school students?
Correct. Yes, I was unfortunately and unknowingly being targeted by multiple groomers and trafficking networks right at my own high school. And the two ways that they had access to me were in person during school hours on campus in plain sight, and also through devices and technology and social media such as Instagram and Snapchat.
You know, over the course of nearly a year, you developed this relationship with this individual online. What were the things that he was talking to you about to gain your trust?
So initially, this was somebody who I had not, in fact, met in person, but this was a friend of mutual friends, people who could vouch for this individual and, a familiar face, somebody who I did have that sense of familiarity with and comfort level enough to begin confiding in this person about the hardships and things that I was enduring, and wearing my heart on my sleeve and being an empath and just wanting to see the best in people. I gradually got taken deeper and deeper in, and that power dynamic and control of fear begins to take place once the charm begins to fade away and they begin to reveal their true
Right.
motives.
So there were kids in the school, high schoolers, or people in the school, I should say, tied to the individuals online.
Yes, it was horrible. How I was actually put on the radar of my first trafficker at my school is because, in fact, after being a victim of sexual assault, which I think it was so incredibly important how you touched on that earlier with Sarah, because 1 in 6 women will either have an attempted sexual assault or completed sexual assault within their lifetime in the United States. That's unacceptable. At my own high school, once I discovered after being assaulted and harassed at my school that students had filmed me unconsensually and had disseminated that content without my knowledge, it ended up in the hands of a child pornography, also known as child sexual abuse material, ring right at my own high school by fellow students in my grade. And people approached me after seeing this, because it is the worst nightmare that can happen to a high school female student, is to have this become your reputation. It didn't matter who I was my whole life before, and that is how I was put on the radar of these groomers in my first.
The high school, Courtney's former school district in Katy, Texas, did release a statement, and it says, "It is our mission to provide safe and secure learning environments that support the physical and emotional well-being of students. As such, the district actively partners with community services, law enforcement, and families to participate in, as well as offer informational and training sessions that educate and build awareness among staff and community members." Courtney, though, back to you and the story with you, you eventually, with this person, you found, you thought you loved them. You thought this trafficker had broken you down and you started to believe that there was love there. And then you were sold to traffickers for a finder's fee of $500, or as you put it, $500 for my life.
You could never have told me that that would be my journey. It took a time to get to that journey, and I became unrecognizable not only to my peers and my parents, but to myself as well. And I was free falling through life, and they put everything out there that they believed that I needed for me to grasp onto, and they became my rock. They told me they were the only people who would love me for everything that had happened to me, and now everything and every bit about who I had become, who my trauma had made me, not my true self, not who God created me to be, not my identity found in my trauma, but that is what they capitalized on in order to exploit me for it.
Courtney, you're so strong. Let me tell you, you are so strong. At 17, as we said, you were lured into this sex trafficking ring. This went on for several years. How were you finally able to escape?
So after several years of being trafficked across the country, being sex trafficked and assaulted and harassed and taken advantage of and exploited for profit on a daily basis during what should have been my senior year of high school, I was trafficked across the country after so many times that I had fled and I was brought back in to different trafficking networks. God had instilled in me and had been working on my heart. You are surrounded and in the face of literal evil, Tamron. And I can tell you right now that I have been in the face and in the darkest of darkest places. But when they took everything from me, when they broke me in every way I didn't know a human being could possibly be broken, the one thing they could not take from me was my faith. And I'm so incredibly fortunate to have an upbringing that I know I am so privileged to have that so many people do not, because that was such an important part in partnering that with the truth that came from my identity being found as a priceless child of God was that I was worth it. And God spoke to me that I needed to run and fight for my life. God does exist and listen and answer prayers, and he mourns. He mourns, and his heart is so broken for the broken people, further perpetuating and hurting and creating more broken people in our broken world and society. But I heard that voice of truth. And it reminded me that I was worth fighting for, and that I had people who were worth fighting for, and that I needed to believe and that I was made for so much more than all of this. And that's what I want to speak value and worth into every single victim and survivor and person who is impacted by the scourge of human trafficking. And that day when I found and reclaimed my identity, my true identity, I fought with like hell with everything in me to get out.
I introduced you by saying that you are currently in Washington, D.C., and I can reveal to the Tam fam the reason why Courtney's in Washington, D.C. is because after 2 years after escaping trafficking, she was appointed to the United States Advisory Council on Human Trafficking. And her life's mission is to end trafficking around the country and anywhere that it happens.